and sort of it hit me that holy crap, there's a whole bunch of series on this shelf that you're not touching. Thinking ahead, I think he's a detective? Isn't that awful? Just buy stuff blind, and I gotta get back at it. So there'll be more coming. Why do I keep saying Ugh. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. For today's video, we're going to talk all things book series, and we're talking series to start, series to finish, and series that I might be somewhere in the middle of. But I am focusing, for the purpose of this video, on series that I own. So there's so many book series out in the universe, duh, but I have so many book series on my bookshelf. And as I gear up to February 1st, when I'm allowed to buy a book, and I might make that first book be the last book in the Truly Devious series, I thought, why not dig into some more series that kind of have my attention, things that I'm interested in, and how many times can I say series in an introduction? Let's just get to the books. So the Truly Devious series seems to be the perfect place to start because The Hand on the Wall, the third book in the trilogy, just came out on January 21st. And I read Truly Devious back in October. I quickly picked up The Vanishing Stair because I needed to know what happened next. And I'm so excited to find out sort of part 3, how this all wraps itself up. But this is a book series about a girl named Stevie who goes to this boarding school in Vermont. And it's like this super elite, you have to apply. It's a small group of kids who get into it, boarding school. And she is obsessed with a mystery murder kidnapping that happened back in the 30s. And it was the headmaster's wife and daughter were kidnapped. And he gets this ransom note. It's kind of signed Truly Devious. And the case was never solved. We fast forward to present day, and Stevie is obsessed with solving this crime. So when she gets to the boarding school, Ellingham, she dives right in, and she's just committed to figure out what happened then. So obviously that's a core part of the story. It's told in dual timelines, so we do flash back to what happened the night of the kidnapping and sort of the aftermath of it in the 30s and all of the players there. And then as Stevie gets to school, she starts to meet a whole bunch of people, make a bunch of friends, and things ensue. So this has been a really fun ride, and I had heard so many great things about this book series but had resisted it, and I've talked about this in other videos, like the one about me just not reading YA books for no good reason but realizing the error of my ways. And it was the main reason that I shied away from it, because I just thought there have been a case of some YA books that I read that made me feel decidedly old, but this was not the case with this book. This book series, books, plural, are smart, the mystery is good, the dialogue is great, the characters are tremendous. I love Stevie as a character. I think it's witty, it's funny, I enjoy the mystery aspect of it, I enjoy the atmosphere of it. I don't know where things are going. There have been some great surprises. So all in, I'm a huge fan. So props to Maureen Johnson. So glad I finally picked this up. The only saving grace of picking it up so late in the game is that the third book is out. So if you haven't picked up this series already, highly recommend it. And then you can plow through all 3 at once. The next book series I have is one that I started a couple years ago and never picked back up again. But I need to for all the obvious reasons, because it's good, because I have the books in the series. And now there's a Showtime show that I would like to see, and that is Tana French's Dublin Murder Squad series. So The Likeness is book number 2 in the series. I read book number 1, which is In the Woods, a few years ago. I've actually unhauled that book, and I'm having a little bit of unhauler's remorse about it, but it's done, it's gone. So I don't know, it's fine. You know, it's fine. But this series, what makes it extremely unique, I think, is that it's obviously police procedural. It follows this murder squad. But each book follows a different detective, so you're not seeing everything through the same person the entire time, which I think is a very unique spin on having a series. So in the case of The Likeness, this focuses on Cassie Maddox, and she was like I would say the secondary main character from In the Woods, and I very much liked her. She was very much forefront, but it wasn't her story being told. And now we get her story. So this takes place 6 months after In the Woods. She's left the Dublin murder squad, but something happens that kind of draws her back in. So it's very police procedural murder case. It is dark. These are characters with a lot of baggage, a lot of twisted history, a lot of complications. They do a lot of unlikable things. There's a real darkness to these books. And there's also, slowness is not the right word, but it is not like a bang, 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 like fast-paced, like shoot 'em out, chase 'em down kind of police procedural. It is definitely a lot about the story, a lot about the characters. It's a slow burn, but intricately done, but interesting. It's just, I'm like, darkness is the word that just kind of comes to mind, which is probably why I like it so much. But I haven't read Tana French in a long time, and I really need to get back to her. I actually picked up multiple books in the series during one of those original book outlet hauls that I did last year, or in 2018, I should say. So I have a lot of books ahead of me, but I definitely want to get back in it and just see what all is going on with my friends in Dublin on the Murder Squad. The next book series I have is one I haven't started yet, but I only have the first book, so I don't feel too bad about that. And that is Stillhouse Lake by Rachel Kane. And this is a book that I have heard tremendous things about from so many people, the first person being Leanne from Literary Diversions. And this sounds like so super twisted up my alley kind of a book, in that Gina is married, kids, perfect suburban little life, everything is great, and then there's like a car accident, I think, that somehow winds up revealing the fact that her husband's a serial killer. So it's not funny, but oh my God. So her husband goes to jail and she takes the kids and gets away. They move to this place, Stillhouse Lake, and she changes her name and she tries to just kind of get as back to normal as she possibly can and try and have as normal of a life for her kids as she possibly can and cope with the fact that she was married to a serial killer. But then what happens, and this is back of the book stuff, I haven't read it yet, is a body shows up in the lake. And I don't know if it's like the MO of her husband's supposed killing or if someone's just tormenting her. She obviously has been assaulted by the media for, you know, did she know about her husband and all this other kind of stuff. So it sounds messed up as all get out. There are 4 books in the series now. There's supposed to be a 5th one coming out in 2021. So I need to get on this because A, it's supposed to be great, and B, there's a whole bunch of books in the series. But I've just heard so many great things about it from so many different people that this is definitely a case of the FOMO starting to kick in. So we need to get on it. I'm trying to switch it up between books that I have on my shelf that I have started the series and books that I haven't started the series. But the next series I have is Patricia Cornwell's Kay Scarpetta series. And All That Remains is book number 3 in the series. This is where I'm at in my reread. So I started this series years ago and I made it, there's 24 books in the series now. So the last book came out in 2016 and I probably stopped reading around 2008, 2009, the books in the series. And I have the books sort of up until that point because we're talking like day one, hardcover, I'm at the Barnes & Noble buying it. Like that's what I've got going on. And I just kind of got away from them. And I distinctly remember one of them like really freaking me out to the point that I was like having bad dreams. And in all fairness, there was like other stuff going on at the time, so it just really was not the right book for me at the time. And as a result, I just kind of got away from the series. But I reread Mortem, which is the first book, in 2019 as part of a reread project that I did. And I absolutely fell in love with Patricia Cornwell and Kay Scarpetta, and I decided I need to read this from the start. So I did treat myself to some of these new editions of the books. I had some of the original paperbacks, which I've unhauled. So these are the UK covers. They're beautiful. And I read, like I said, 2 of the books last year, and I need to just keep on going with it. So obviously, I'm not going to read all 24 books this year, but I would like to start to move my way back through the series. I'm enjoying like revisiting all the characters, how they all originally met. I think, you know, I don't know that any author expects to have that long of a series or that kind of development with the characters. So obviously they age differently through the books than in real time. But there are characters like her niece Lucy, who's 10 in book number 1, and I think she's 30 by the time we get to book number 24. The detectives that she works with, like the people in the FBI, kind of other people in her universe. There's a whole cast of characters we get to meet over and over again. And Patricia Cornwell is just a smart writer. It is, Kay Scarpetta is a medical examiner down in Virginia. She gets involved in all sorts of cases. Eventually she gets taken out of Virginia and is in New York at times and Florida, where she's from. Or maybe she like winds up having a house in Miami or something. There's all sorts of things that kind of transpire over the course of the series. But I had forgotten how scary, even though I shouldn't have because I had the book that gave me nightmares, but Mortem really scared me. The second book, not as much. Well written, but not as scary. And what's also interesting is these books were, she wrote the first one in like 89 or 90. So when you're reading these, I mean, you're back in a time where it's fax machines and DNA is just starting to come onto the scene and people are smoking at the morgue and, you know, it's missed phone calls and payphones and stakeouts and there's no social media footprint, you know, there's no way of tracking people down. It's a much more challenging time to catch a killer, so to speak. And I really enjoyed being back in that world where things are more complicated and it seems like there's a lot of different risk when you're kind of left in the alleyway or you're alone in the car at night and things like that. So I am loving the reread on this one and I'm excited to just keep on trucking in 2020. Switching back to a series I haven't started, but I only own the first book, so it's not that bad. And it's Case Histories by Kate Atkinson. I have not read anything by Kate Atkinson, and I do also have Life After Life, but I picked this up. I'm still angry about this. I don't even know if you can see that on the camera. It came bent from Book Outlet, which I still have rage about, but we're gonna let it go. So this is the Jackson Brody series. There are 5 books in the series right now. The last one came out in 2019, and this came out in 2004, I want to say. So this is definitely a series that she has dipped in and out of. I don't know if there's going to be more to the series. There is also a BBC series, yes, 2004, that is maybe like based on the first 2 or 3 books, which I would also like to watch because why not? I'll be honest, I don't even know a whole lot about what this series is. I know it's some sort of twist on a detective series. I don't know if he's an active detective or retired or kicked off the force, or I don't know if there's like some dark cloud hanging over his head. Like, I'm not even sure. I don't even care. I just want to read it. But it has such great reviews. There's so much praise for it. It says it's like Raymond Chandler-esque. There's just sort of genre-busting detective novel, and there's just, like I said, there's just a lot of great reviews on it. And let's be honest, I need to read Kate Atkinson because I haven't. And if I'm going to start with her, I'm probably going to start on the detective side of things, which you'll see in another book that I'm going to talk about. So yes, Case Histories, here we go. Book 1 in the series. I think I already said there's 5. So let's get cracking. The next book is one I'm so excited to read, and it's A Case for Jamie by Brittany Cavallaro. And this is book number 3 in the Charlotte Holmes, Jamie Watson series, which I read the first 2 books of at the end of December. I talked about that in my December wrap-up and in my kind of favorites of 2019. This was a series I picked up, I believe, I want to say I was like reading something that had Truly Devious in it and was also saying that like if you liked that, you'll like this kind of a thing. Picked it up on a whim and totally fell in love with the books. And there is a 4th book that came out last year called A Question of Holmes. I think that's the end of the series. I didn't want to look too much because I'll be honest, I opened the flap of book number 2 when it came just to kind of make sure it wasn't dinged in any kind of a way because it came from Book Outlet. And like the first line of it was a spoiler for what happens. That's a lie. I opened this book and the first line of the inside flap of this is the spoiler of what happens in book number 2. And I was mad. So I didn't look too far beyond, I know that there's a book number 4, but I do think that that's the end of the series. So either way, I'm obviously gonna read it. But Charlotte Holmes and Jamie Watson are the great, great, great grandchildren of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson. And it is set in present day. They wind up at the same boarding school, and it's how they become friends. They are very quickly embroiled in a murder of a fellow student, and we kind of take off from there. And what I love about these books, other than the fact that they are smart and well written and the characters are terrific, is it is a very dark take on Holmes and Watson. And there was a part of me that thought it was going to be like a little bit light, and I don't want to say fluffy, but I was expecting sort of some lightness to it. And it is really dark. Charlotte's got some problems, and I love it. I love that she went there. I love that she took it there. It felt much more authentic to a teenage experience, sort of all crime fighting aside, so to speak. But the issues they face, what can happen in this day and age, whether it's, you know, with the social media and the experience of being away, whether it's at a boarding school or it's at college, like it felt like a very authentic experience to me. And I really I haven't read Brittany Cavallaro before, so I didn't know what to expect, but I really liked how dark she went with the book. So you guys have listened to me talk about Dark Betty before. I feel like she went kind of Dark Betty, and I loved every minute of it. So it took a lot of self-control to not dive straight into this after I read the first 2 books, but I wanted to like press pause and also savor the moment. But the savoring is going to stop pretty soon. So I don't own book 4. I can't buy it yet because it's still January. So it'll happen at some stage, and I will be sure to fill you guys in as I finish up some of these series too. Another series that I haven't started, and this is one that I 100% fell for the hype and picked this up, and also thought the cover was beautiful, so I had to have it. And it's The Hazel Wood by Melissa Albert. So the second book in the series, which is called, wait for it, The Night Country, just came out on January 7th. And I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't read anything about it because, again, I don't want to risk any type of spoiler. But this is, I don't know if it's like fantasy, mystery, YA. I'm not even sure what this is categorized as. I feel like it might be a little genre defying, but I know that Alice and her mom wind up going to her grandmother's house. So her grandma was a reclusive author who wrote about this place called the Hazel Wood. And when she dies, Alice and her mom sort of have to go deal with that, basically. And I believe they kind of get, I don't know if both of them or just Alice, like sort of winds up like in the world of the Hazelwood, because it wasn't just a fantasy world that her grandmother created, but an actual world out there, I think. So I'm sure there's a lot of you out there shaking your heads like, how do you not know what this book is about? But come on, you know me. I don't know a lot about a lot. Just stay away from the Hazelwood. So her grandma's got some crazy fans. So it says that Alice has to venture into the world where her grandmother's tales begin and where she might discover why her own story went wrong. So I feel like they're like not close with her grandma. Like there's all sorts of family stuff going on in here too. But I've heard a lot of wonderful things about it. I heard a lot of like WTF things about it also. But I needed to get it because the cover was beautiful. Needed. And now it's part of a series. So here we are talking about it, and maybe that will hold me more accountable to actually read it and not just look at it because it's pretty. The next book I have is also the first in a series that I haven't started reading yet, and I have book number 2, and I have book number 3 because Book Outlet made me do it, and it is The Cuckoos Calling by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling, and this is the Cormoran Strike series. I had a look. And there is a book number 4 that is out already, and I believe there's going to be a book number 5 coming out. So this is already like a very well-established series. And what I've heard is it's also a very good series. So I'm saying that like I'm surprised. I have not read any J.K. Rowling. I haven't read Harry Potter. No hate. I missed the boat when it happened. Friends of mine read it. It just didn't appeal to me at the time. I definitely think my ship has sailed on Harry. I debate it every once in a while, but I talked about this eons ago in a video. I don't know what I was watching. I think it was just like a podcast or something I came across on YouTube about J.K. Rowling, and I became just fascinated by her, or there was like a biography on TV or something, but just absolutely fascinated with her story and her like sort of meteoric success, obviously, but what all that meant to her, what that did, for her in her life, but also the story about how she writes and the creative process, and how she, was tried to maintain some sort of normalcy while she was writing the books and sort of recapture the feeling when she was writing the original Harry Potter to the end with all that fanfare going on around her. But writer hat firmly on. I was just 100% fascinated by her journey and wanted to read stuff by her, but still wasn't totally feeling like Harry was right for me. So I decided to do these books instead. I haven't read them yet, but I bought them. And I need to read them. I need to read them. And I feel like this is a TV series also. I don't even know if it's out here, but they're mystery thrillers, which sounds really exciting. And this one is a troubled supermodel falls to her death from the balcony of her London home. It's assumed she committed suicide, but her brother has doubts and calls in private detective Cormoran Strike to investigate. So, yes. There's just nothing else to say other than start to read the series. But this is another one that's kind of like a chunker. They're all kind of big books. I talked about this in one of my other, I need to read what's going on here before I can buy anything new. And there's some big books that are scary to me because they're big. This one is 455 pages. So no small feat, but like I'm gonna put on my big girl pants and I'm gonna get it done. And the last series that I want to talk about is one that I raved about last year. So as of now, it's just a duology. I think there might be a third book coming. I did a little Goodreads research before I filmed this, and it's V.E. Schwab, Vengeful. So I read Vicious last year, and I loved it. And that was I feel like one of the first books where I really made a conscious choice to go out of my zone. And much like with J.K. Rowling, I was listening to podcast after podcast of V.E. Schwab, and I was just mesmerized by her as a writer, as a creator, listening to her talk about her stories and her ideas and her commitment to her craft and how long she's been committed to her craft and her entire journey. It's like writer seduction for me. Like I could listen to these authors talk all day long. And as I was listening to her, I was like, I need to read this woman's books. What am I doing? She's so smart. She's so funny. There's so much wit and creativity to what she does. And even though what she writes is not in my normal wheelhouse, I need to get on this. So I picked up Vicious and I freaking devoured that book. And I talked about this before. I was like on Amazon buying this while I was reading Vicious. And then I did that same thing where it's like I didn't want to have burnout. So I didn't want to like ruin the Vicious moment and risk reading another book right after it and sort of like having like a book hangover, so to speak. So I like paused on it and then just didn't get back to it. So I have heard, I would say like most people whose reviews I have seen, and not in a spoilery way, because I'm, again, super protective of that when I'm in the series mode, is people gave Vicious 5 stars, which I totally did, and people gave Vengeful 4 stars. And 4 stars is hardly a bad book, but I'm not sure where this goes. So I know a lot of the characters from book number 1 are in book 2, but then I think we get more characters as well. And this is very much these two guys who were best friends in college, and they basically have discovered, Victor and Eli, that they can give themselves superpowers, so to speak, and they become what's called an extraordinary. But what they discover is that not all superheroes are heroes per se, and the powers are not always powers of good. And it is two people who both think they're doing the right thing, and they go from best of friends to sort of being on the opposite sides, and they both think they are in the right, and sort of you as the reader can decide who you think is right or wrong. And this is the book that had the quote about it's not good versus evil, it's bad versus worse, and it's the morally gray. And I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not a superheroes person, loved it. I am not like a sci-fi fantasy is not something I gravitate towards, loved it. I did not expect to fall as in love with the writing as I did, with the characters as I did, to have such strong emotions. I cried when I was reading Vicious. I mean, this book just rocked my world. So part of me is afraid to read this, which is so silly. At the end of the day, I just need to get back to this and see what happens next for Eli and Victor and kind of all of their friends. And I have no doubt that this is going to have me on the edge of my seat, flipping like a crazy lady like Vicious did. So here we go with book number 2. So reading these series should keep me busy for quite a while, and I'm gonna aim to read at least one book in each series this year, which should be completely feasible. And I am also like low-key working on an unhaul behind the scenes, and since some of these books, as you can see, are series that I haven't even touched, I think it would be a good idea to at least read one of them to see if they're series that I'm going to want to continue. But let me know if you guys have read any of these, either like start, finish, somewhere in between. Thoughts on that, spoiler free please, but I would love to know your thoughts on them, or if there's another series that you are like knee deep in or starting that you're absolutely loving too, because of course I want to try something new because I always like to see what else is out there. But let me know about all that good stuff, and if you like videos like this, give it a thumbs up so I know that this is the kind of content you guys want to see. It's super helpful to get that kind of info. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because I put up new videos 2 to 3 times a week and would love to have everybody back to chat about stuff when that happens. So thank you guys for spending part of your day with me today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.